Uh-oh, it's Friday, and we're going to ruffle some feathers. The Pac-12 and Big 12, what's with the animosity? Why is OU so bougie? Why is Texas so Bush League? And we do know that spreading ridiculousness out west is turned into a career, right? And the king of ridiculousness, the mouth-breathing buffoon himself, Paul Finebaum, has struck again. Sit back, relax, grab some popcorn. This one's going to get fun.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Of course, we are available on every single podcasting platform as well as visually on YouTube. You can find me personally at All Day O State. The majestic beard feels powerful today. It's Friday. We're fired up, feeling a little bit feisty. So let's just jump right into it, all right? So the Big 12 and the Pac-12, obviously there's been a contentious relationship very recently. We've already kind of talked about how a few years ago, the Pac-12 a couple years ago could have potentially put the end to the Big 12, but they decided to be so pretentious and sanctimonious that they decided not to do so, shoved their nose way up in the air and pretended that they were too good for the Big 12. Now they're in the same situation we were a couple years ago. And here is the irony, right? Why is there animosity? Why does this even exist? Because if we remember back, the Pac-12 commissioner, George Kliavkoff, has systematically, purposefully, and strategically thrown as many shots the Big 12's direction as physically possible. Matter of fact, the fun little cute comments of we don't know if we're going to shop there, right? That stuff. And then also him directly calling out the Big 12 for trying to poach teams out of his conference a couple days after, say it again, after the Big 10 swooped in and stole USC and UCLA. After that happened, he decided to throw shots at the Big 12 like we were the issue. That is part of this ridiculousness. Now you are hearing some more crap coming out recently that the Pac-12 is going to stay together, yada, yada, yada. And regardless, the only people that are really saying that are the people that have some skin in the game out west, right? I mean, I kind of get it, but misleading people on purpose is kind of ridiculous to me. Just like the contentious relationship between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 is also ridiculous to me. There is not much of a comparison. There's just not. Ladies and gentlemen, over half of the Pac-12 is a massive pillow fight. It is a huge fest of nothingness. The Big 12 may not have, all of the prestige that the Pac-12 used to have, but from top to bottom, we're the funnest league. We're the most competitive league. We're the only league in the P5 that you cannot take a day off, whether you're playing number 2 ranked or the number 12 ranked team. It doesn't matter. If you slip up and you're not prepared, you will lose the football game. That's not the case in the PAC as whack as Mountain West. It's just not. Do they have good quarterback play right now? Yes, they do. And that's really their calling card for this season, other than the fact that they have Lincoln Riley over there in Hollywood, right? They're going to continue to go down that road. They can talk about Utah. We can talk about Utah. We can talk about Utah's place in the Pac-12 as opposed to their place in the Big 12. And it's a night and day difference. So even if the Pac-12 does stay together, and again, if you're listening to some people like Mr. Wetzel, yeah, he's an expert, worked for Yahoo for a very, very long time. But he's on with people like Ross Dellinger, who is what? A mouthpiece out west. Not quite the buffoonery mouthpiece that Paul Finebaum is, but we'll get to that tasty little nugget later. But again, this Big 12, Pac-12 thing is so misguided. Kevin Warren, right, was the commissioner up there in Big 10 country. He was part of that verbal agreement, right? The unwritten handshake between the ACC, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. Like, we're buddies. We're going to stay together. We're not going to let the SEC run roughshod over everybody. We're going to be partners. We're going to be homies. Just to take your main brand like a thief in the night. They pulled a Boomer Sooner move. And like a thief in the night, they came and stole everything away from you. And then you, George Kliavkoff, you want to throw shade at the Big 12. Why? Well, you're trying to, quote unquote, punch down, or at least that's what you thought at the time. Now you have seen, which is why you keep your trap shut, which is a good call, because usually when you open it, it's not a good move for you, boss man. But he has been pretty silent. And they keep scooting the goalpost back. And just like Mr. Wetzel said, shout out John Kurtz. John Kurtz had an awesome interview at Big 12 Media Days with Tim Weiser, who is the deputy commissioner for the Big 12, who's been around the Big 12 for a long time, was the AD at Kansas State from 2001 to 2008, I believe. He's seen how the Big 12 has kind of evolved and devolved, all in the name of what we have now. And he did shed some light, which was actually very, very interesting, about how the Big 12 didn't necessarily view the conference as a way to market, as a way to get kids involved, to get kids invested. It was always about the team and the coach and the facilities, right? That's the old school way. And it is still like that to some degree. But at the same time, playing in the SEC, if you're a lineman, it does afford you a little bit of an extra golden ticket as a quote-unquote path to the NFL. It's true. It's factual. They've built their house around it, and the house is on very good foundations. Kudos to them. Congrats. Brett Yormark is a visionary. Brett Yormark came in immediately, and he said, all right, well, what are we doing? Why do you do that? Okay, that doesn't work. Why were you doing that? And he opened the eyes of a lot of people in the conference, whether it be ADs, chancellors, presidents, and he made them realize the newer, cooler, younger, hipper type of stuff, it's a mentality as well, right? Internally, you have to think about, what are these kids looking for? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it just NIL? Is it just NFL pedigree? Is it just instantaneous playing time? What is it, right? You have to break all that down, but it makes it more difficult now. It's going to make it even more difficult for the Pac-12, knowing that they're potentially going to be a glorified G5 at some point in time. It is inevitable. The Pac-12 will not be able to sustain for long term. They know it. You know it. I know it. We know it. The people that are spreading all this crapola about them surviving, they know it too. Even if they do survive now, it's a matter of time, right? The clock has already started on the end of the Pac-12, or at least a different Pac-12. And do we go back to Kevin Warren? They're not mad at the Big Ten, are they? No. They're not mad at Kevin Warren, are they? No. Because they thought they could pick a fight with the Big 12. And, okay. But Brett Yormark sees the writing on the wall. He's still not being shy that we're going to go out west. We are going to expand. And Tim Weiser talked, with John Kurtz, and they did talk about the idea of basketball only not being what it is right now, but it could be more. So obviously basketball is a placeholder here, but Tim Weiser also said they're not super interested in bringing in one sport schools, which is smart because we have heard about Gonzaga potentially coming for basketball. Basketball is already the best, right? I know UConn had an amazing run. They won the national title. They might be part of the Big 12. I think that's potentially going to happen no matter what. And they're a Power 5. So the pro rata clause does, in fact, come into play. I get that adding G5s may not help you in that department. It might. I think adding somebody like a San Diego State is a good thing because the Big 12 is in a position of power at the moment. The Big 12 is the number 3 conference. There's not a lot out there that you can contest because top to bottom, the Big 12 is the strongest, funnest, most powerful conference each and every week. Now, do we have the top heavy hitters like the SEC? No. Do we have the top heavy hitters to some degree like the Big Ten? No, we don't have our Michigan, Ohio State anymore. They're about to bounce. And both of them would love nothing more than to make the Big 12 title game on their way out. Just, have the ability to be a little bit more braggadocious than they currently are. But yeah, this is it is ridiculous. The whole deal. And we'll get into some more of what he said, but I want to hear what you guys have to say down in the comment section. Obviously, let me know kind of what your thought process is here. Do you recall when the animosity started. Do you recall when the Pac-12 probably should have acted less sanctimonious, and they could have taken more teams from the Big 12, and then this conversation isn't even happening? See, I think that's the big thing that people tend to forget. We're not butthurt about whatever's happening at Pac-12 here in Big 12 country. We don't care. But we do see the irony, right? You kept poking the bear, you kept making fun, and it was all jokes, and it was all cool until now. Now that the shoe's on the other foot, physically, proverbially, however, which way you want to go about it, it is what it is. And I want to hear you down in the comment section. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't like it, because that's okay too. Let me know down in the comment section what I could have done to potentially make it better. We're on the road to 1K. Whenever we started this thing, 8 months ago, I really wanted to have 1,000 subscribers before the football season. And it looks like it's going to happen. So thank you to you guys. Thank you to the regulators out there. We got a new one for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are brought to you by eBay Motors. For any championship level team, it's all about making sure every player has the perfect fit, right? Systematically, schematically, internally, physically, all of it. And it's the same when it comes down to your vehicle. Every part naturally needs to kind of fit right. So the next time you need parts or accessories, head to eBay Motors. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add it to your ride, to my garage, and look for the green check to know that the part will actually fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence in the name of the game when you shop by eBay Motors makes life much better, right? You got to have the power of the name behind it. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll get back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home the W when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, get the right fit, and get it with the right prices. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride, ladies and gentlemen, in the famous words of Russell Wilson. Let's ride, let's fly, whatever you want to say. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible terms only. Exclusions obviously apply. This is awesome. This is part of what you need to be exploring. The championship motto, you need to bring it into your garage as well with eBay Motors. All righty, y'all. So if you see there, the next thing on the old ticker type of deal is another thing that Tim Weiser was talking about when he was meeting with John Kurtz at Big 12 Media Days that seems to cause some outrage right now from primarily Texas fans, was the fact that he didn't necessarily view it as strictly monetary, because everybody knows Texas has money. Texas always has had money. They always will have money. They didn't need the big SEC chunk. It was more about saving face, really. It was like, to me, they'd rather have the fancy car. They'd rather have a Lamborghini in the driveway of a trailer park than drive a Honda in a pretty nice house. I think that's a good analogy for me. I think it's pretty spot on. Texas is about ego. Texas is about appearances. And Texas doesn't like losing to Iowa State. They don't like losing to Kansas State. They don't like losing to us on a every year almost basis for the last 10 to 12 years. They don't like any of that. They're okay with losing to Bama, right? Just like last year, you talk about consolation prizes. And Texas loves their consolation prizes. They almost beat Texas. They lost. They found a way to piss the game away, but they were like, hey, guys, we almost beat Alabama. We almost did it. So close. And they loved it. They loved it down in the 40 acres. It was an awesome loss. It's so sad to see that Texas football has come to that they're more excited about, quote unquote, quality losses than playing in a conference that they cannot win. Right? Like, what are we doing here? And Texas fans are now upset because how dare somebody come out and speak the truth? Brett Yormark hasn't been around the Big 12 this entire time. Tim Weiser has. He has seen what they did the last time the Big 12 fell apart. A&M left because of Texas. Nebraska left because of Texas. Mizzou left because of Texas. You guessed it, Colorado left because of all the instability that was about to happen any daggone ways. Same with Mizzou. But 100% Texas A&M and Nebraska hated the fact that Texas wanted to be a bigger part of everything. Win, lose, draw, doesn't matter. Texas wants to puff their itty-bitty baby muscles out. Big state doesn't mean you have big capabilities. Big campus doesn't mean you have big opportunities to win conference titles. If you can't win the Big 12, this is very true, what Weiser said. It's very clear. Whenever somebody that has been in the Big 12 forever and a day since the early 2000s, he's seen what Texas has done to the conference. He's seen OU kind of fly by the night, right? And whenever he puts stuff out that's funny as all get out, I'm okay with it. And I think we all should be. He called OU the reluctant bride. OU didn't need to leave. They had no reason to leave the Big 12. They were king of the hill. Lest you not forget that historically, wins-wise, we're next on that list. So when OU leaves, we should be the top dog, right? But what Mr. Weiser said was very refreshing because he was legitimate. He was honest. Brett Yormark cannot say this stuff about Texas and OU, even if he wanted to, even if he knew it was 100% legitimate and true and factual and accurate. He couldn't say it because he hasn't been in the conference. He hasn't even been in this realm of the sports world. So he's going to stay in his lane, but his lane is like an Autobahn lane, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, Texas is over here trying to get over, but they can't make it. They haven't made it. So Brett Yormark's playing chess while others are playing checkers. And now you have all of this being played out, and Texas fans are getting so huffy and puffy about it. But think about it. Common sense. I know it's not always all that common anymore, but if we can dig back and we can help people collectively think of the common sense argument, this is legitimate. Like, what is he saying that's not accurate? Texas doesn't like losing to Iowa State. They don't like losing to a 2-win Kansas team. But they do like losing to Alabama. They will like losing to Florida. They're okay with that. Again, they'd rather have the Lambo and the trailer park than a nice rig and a nice house. That's Texas. OU, not so much. But I find it beyond comical that people are upset about this in Texas country. Because, why are they so upset? Because they know it's true. They know their brand of bull honky is getting called out by somebody who's been in the game for a very, very, very long time, who's seen all of this transpire in his years, and they're butthurt about it. Typical. That's typical for Texas. And OU's not really saying much because, from their perspective, if Texas is going to go, they're going to go. And if they're going to go, the SEC is going to take somebody with them. It's just natural, right? And so OU's like, well, it's got to be us. If Texas is leaving and it's going to shake up the Big 12, then, yeah, we'll go. And that's that. And Texas is the catalyst for the ridiculousness. And if you see the next thing right there in the ticker that we roll right into is even more ridiculousness from people like Paul Finebaum and Greg Sankey. Like, if Brett Yormark is insignificant, then everybody not named George Kliavkoff is just going to kind of leave him be. But now you got Greg Sankey and the SEC trying to muscle in on the Big 12 to prove a point. And we'll see what Brett Yormark has to say, or actually has to physically do about it. Brett Yormark's not going to take this laying down. The SEC trying to bring their dog and pony show to Dallas for their media days next year just to kind of conflict with what we have going on. They're going to put the SEC all bright up in the sky. Again, if Brett Yormark is insignificant and he's not turning heads and he's not making moves, then why would Greg Sankey even even contemplate having these conversations and saying these things. Right? And we'll get to the mouth-breathing buffoon himself, Paul Finebaum. But let's read real quick what Mr. Sankey had to say in reaction to everything that Mr. Weiser had to say with John Kurtz at Big 12 Media Days. Greg Sankey comes out per On3 Sports. He says, I'm going to be as clear as I can. It's fiction, period. That's just fiction. The outreach from both equitability, it was from the presidential level directly and clearly. And OU and Texas presidents both equally were clear about their interest in joining the SEC. As I recall, they said, we've watched and you have led the way, basically, which is a compliment to me. And our group has made decisions in how we have functioned, and they want to be a part of that. That's as clear as I can be. I continue to maintain that the choice Texas made wasn't financial, but because we all know what Texas resources are like. Now, this was what Mr. Weiser had to say. Mr. Weiser says, I continue to maintain that the choice Texas made wasn't a financial one because we all know they have the resources on any given Saturday. They'd rather get beat by Alabama than they would lose to a Kansas State, or they'd rather get beat by Florida than get beat by an Iowa State. In OU's case, I'm not as convinced that that was the issue for them. I think they're more of what I would call the reluctant bride that kind of felt like, wow, if we don't go, what happens to the OU and Texas football game, basketball, rivalry, all the things we know from an OU and Texas standpoint that are really important. So I kind of felt like if it was OU's case, it would have been hard for me to not think about the long-term ramifications. And we want to be affiliated with Texas now or these other schools. Right? The truth always lies somewhere in the middle. But if none of this mattered, Greg Sankey would have nothing to say. Right? He wouldn't be coming down to Dallas to kind of muscle in on Big 12 Media Days if he didn't know that Brett Yormark has some stuff cooking. Like, I love it. In Brett Yormark, we trust. There's more to come for the Big 12, and everybody knows it, and everybody's starting to feel it. It's not just out west. Now, are we ever going to catch the SEC financially? No, we're not. Are we ever going to catch the Big 10 financially? No, probably not at all. But in terms of Power 3, we're there. We're it. And obviously, a couple of these dudes don't like that. They would prefer that the ACC be number 3. They would prefer that the Pac-12 be number 3. They can prefer all they want. They can prefer the way right out the door. Or if you're Paul Finebaum, you can prefer your way into not only retaining your job, but making more money by just saying stupid crap. It draws eyeballs, right? Good for you. That works. Right? This whole conversation of OU and Texas don't know what they're getting into. That's dumb. OU and Texas, they will compete in the SEC because the back half of the SEC is trash. Absolute trash. So they will likely have a better record than in the Big 12. You'll see. You'll see. They're not going to struggle like some people are thinking. Right? And Mr. Paul Finebaum, of course, had to open his trap. Paul Finebaum, who just a couple weeks ago was praising some of the stuff that the Big 12 was doing. He recently likened Iowa State's Jack Trice Stadium to a kindergarten class. Yeah. Right. The environment, the atmosphere at Jack Trice Stadium, and everybody knows if you go to a night game in November in Ames, Iowa, you're probably going to lose. It's just they get right on top of you. Not quite as much as Boone Pickens Stadium, but pretty close. The atmosphere is wild. Yeah, I understand the pageantry in the SEC, and there's more seats in the SEC. I get all that. The big charade, the big parade, that's cool. But it only matters what it's like on the field in the moment. How does it affect your offense? Does your quarterback have a hard time calling the plays in? Because if there's only 2,000 fans and the quarterback can't audible because it's too daggone loud, that matters. If you can feel the intensity, if you can feel the energy, and it can help the home team bottle it up and feed it to the guys and make it infectious on the field, that's what matters. And so to say this, okay, here we go. He says, you cannot limp into this league. You'll get run over. Nobody needs to take the Big 12 and try to compare it to the SEC. There's simply no comparison. OU's done so well, but everyone talks about going to Iowa State. Well, I can give you 12 places in the SEC that make Iowa State look like a kindergarten class. He also used Iowa State as an example in a separate interview a week ago when he also said, I've had people tell me you don't understand what it's like to go play in Ames, Iowa. I would add late in the season, night game, November type of scenario. But Finebaum said to Tex Ags, I can assure you Saturday night games in Ames, Iowa do not compare to any Saturday night in Auburn, Baton Rouge, the Swamp, Knoxville. I mean, you can go 11 deep in the SEC. You think that it would be easy to play in South Carolina? I mean, the Big 12 is a good league. It's like good for TCU, but this is a different world. Everyone listening and everyone watching will already know that. Okay. Again, has Paul Finebaum been to a Jack Trice Stadium late November in a night game? No, he hasn't. Right? Especially when they're good. God forbid they're good. Then it's a handful and a half. There is not a single team in the Big 12 that would want to go play a night game in November in Ames, Iowa. None of them, because we know better. When he says it's laughable to talk about the differentiation between the Big 12 and the SEC, even if you take out OU and Texas, that's a stupid statement. Because, again, the back half of the SEC is trash. It is complete hogwash, hot garbage. Kansas would beat the dog tar out of the 8th place team in the SEC. Iowa State would beat the dog crap out of the number 8 team in the SEC, the number 10 team in the SEC. TCU would make mincemeat of the bottom half of the SEC. And I'm being generous by giving them halves. I mean, Oklahoma State, this is a down year. Give me Florida right now. All day, every day, twice on a Sunday. Eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're talking about Bama and Georgia. You, Mr. Paul Finebaum, are riding the coattails of Bama and Jordan. You jumped on the back of Nick Saban's longest suit jacket years ago, and you have not let go since. So all you do is bump the gums, and hope that someone comes to listen to your crap fest. It worked. It works. Good job. Hats off. We give props here when props are due. Handle your props here, Mr. Paul Finebaum. Handle your props here, Mr. Greg Sankey. The Big 12 is ruffling feathers. The Big 12 is causing problems. People have taken notice. This is not just a Brett Yormark versus George Kliavkoff thing anymore. Other people recognize what we're doing. Other people recognize what Brett Yormark is trying to do. And mark my words, this time next year, several people will be doing their darndest to make sure Brett Yormark gets out of the Big 12. Again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. We won't catch them financially. Them or the Big 10. We get that. But we can catch them in a lot of other areas that make their life very difficult. That's the plan. That's the objective. That's going to happen. Pac-12 will not have a say in it. The ACC will not have a say in it. The only person who can have a say in what shakes down right here, right now is probably Notre Dame. And that's probably an inevitable move at some point in time as well. Maybe 3 years down the line, maybe 5 years down the line. This stuff is coming. And Greg Sankey knows it. Paul Finebaum knows it. So does the Pac-12. That's why they keep moving the goalpost. Just like Mr. Weiser said. being in this industry, in this job, when you know you got a good deal, you're screaming it from every single mountaintop you can physically possibly find in America. Every one of them. But if you know that the money's not really very good and things aren't going very smooth, you keep your mouth shut. And then you push as many people as you can in front of cameras and get them to say, the Pac-12's fine. They're going to survive. Nobody's leaving. This is Big 12 anon. We shall see. But credibility matters. I don't have a lot of sources, but I have enough to know crap when I see it thrown against the wall. And I love it. And I love you guys stopping in today. I want to thank you very much. Helped me on this road to 1,000. Without y'all, it wouldn't be possible. All the regulars, a.k.a. my regulators, make sure you hammer down in the comment section there. I greatly appreciate it. About to get on the road to drive to Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the World Series, 17U or 16U. But until the next one, the next hotel show, you know I love you. God bless. Most importantly, go Pokes. And thank y'all once again for making this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. All righty. Later, taters.